Alright, hell yeah. So in this video we're going to go over paddle weights. And so first up is this Warner Bandit, and it's 26 ounces. And that's pretty darn light. Now it's a wider blade, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. The next one up, I think this is a Warner Guide Stick. It's 26.5 ounces. And now we're going to go straight to the Carlisle, because this is kind of the gold standard of comparison. Now both of those Carlisles are 38 ounces. Now I was able to get the Outfitters. They no longer sell the Outfitters, just a little bit heavier. And so just up above is the Total Economy, standard paddle at 27 ounces. So that's a savings of 11 ounces. So just know that the generic paddles can vary quite a bit. Okay, hell yeah. And then this is a new addition, this blue one, blue and yellow, and this 39 ounces. And I even cut it down to 56 inches. This is the shortest paddle I have, but it is very heavy. The blade is wider. Now, here I bought a carbon shaft for about 60 bucks, inserted it, but I think this will break on me. I tried to paddle it aggressively. It's 20 ounces, which isn't substantially light, compared to other carbon paddles that you can get for lightweight touring. So we're going to go to the internet and kind of check that out. But these are the paddles that I own, and then I have tried and tested the Carlisle. Even though they're heavy, just the way the dynamics of the blade going through the water, it is the most easy to pry in R1 boat. It's the most resilient. Oh yeah, and then up here, this was a river find. It's a SUP paddle that broke. I was able to turn it into a 63-inch paddle. I have yet to test that. That has a big spoon shape, and so that comes in at 32 ounces. Okay, and to make this video just nice and concise, we're going to go to the internet and talk about paddle weights. But just to let you know, I have paddled this Bandit quite a bit, and I've gotten used to it. And what I'm going to say is that I want this 60-inch Bandit to be 56-inch. I really want a reduction in length because this paddle scoop and the paddle blade size is just really big. It bites too much water. And then so we're going to compare this Bandit to the Bandito, which would probably be, for an R1er, I'm just going to say it probably could be the best weight and performance paddle on the market currently for an R1er. So let's head to the internet. Booyah. Alright, hell yeah. So in this part of the video, we're going to go over all of these different paddles, and we're going to compare weight. And I think we're also going to compare T-grip, shaft diameter, and what the blade looks like, because this is my huge bias. I've been using the Carlisle for basically all of my R1, so many years and stuff. The only other paddle that I've used is the Warner Bandit. There is big benefits to that, and one is weight, another is blade shape, but there are some drawbacks. One of the things that I've gotten used to are the very narrow T-grip of the Carlisle paddle, also the narrow diameter shaft. This comes in maybe at 1 1/8. You have a 1-inch aluminum core, and then the outer, pops out to be like a total diameter maybe of 1 1/8. I might be off on that. But the other paddles that are fiberglass are going to be significantly larger diameter. And the other thing with this paddle shape, I've just gotten used to it. And so, hell yeah. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is one of the paddles. This is very similar to my fiberglass old Warner Guide Stick. This is the Warner Nantahala. Now this shape, I can just tell you, is not my favorite. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to, not to knock anything, because there's a lot I do like about the Warner Bandit, which has a completely different shape. This is going to be a straight, there's nothing spooned about this blade. That's probably, I think it's a fairly flat blade, just like my Warner Guide Stick. But yeah, I don't know if it's just the fact that it's too much. There's that aspect. A lot of the Warner paddles, they're light and they have quite large blades, or they're just efficient in the water, especially with the thin fiberglass blade. It can catch, so much water. And even from the physics, the second you lock in, you're actually, able to pile up maybe molecules of water, at a more of a taper. And so you can actually, due to the aerodynamic physics of being such an efficient paddle, sometimes you can, it can feel too much in the water. All right, hell yeah. So this is the adjustable shaft, and it comes in at 30. All of these, you can see the exact ounce. I'm just going to kind of round. The straight shaft, where it's just one piece, I'm sorry, this is just, they're both straight shafts, but this is an adjustable paddle. This is one piece, and it comes in at 27 ounces. And so still, compared to the standard Carlisle, the standard Carlisle is 34 ounces. And you saw in my garage that I have the Outfitter version of the Carlisle. They don't make the Outfitter version anymore, but those were just a little bit beefier, thicker aluminum. And my paddles are 38, which is incredibly heavy. And I get that. I know my paddles are heavy, but it's the bias of me using them. But like I said, I like the T-grip, I like that narrow shaft diameter, and this blade is inefficient in the water. I've talked about how the Carlisles are like throwing a brick into the water every stroke, but there is something for R1, there is a huge benefit to that, because you can move the blade through the water into the pry position, without having to be so precise, and learning, and throughout, this is my just go-to, I guess. And at 38 ounces for my paddles, I guess it doesn't matter the weight, like the shape, the diameter, and the feel of the paddle is more important. So this, my only negative, or to come up with my design for, if like I would, something that I would want for R1, this shape I don't like. Hell yeah. And so that also fits into the guide stick. I'm surprised the guide stick actually isn't too heavy. It's only 32 ounces, I was surprised about that. And the Nomad I was really surprised about. Now this would be very interesting. This is very similar shape to the Bandit. And we're gonna get to that in a second, but it's not spooned. I don't think this is spooned. I think it's gonna be symmetric on both faces. It's gonna be a flat-faced paddle blade, and this only comes in at 27 ounces. But it's only 60. It's only 60 inch. You can only get this in a 60. And the other thing that I'm exploring is shorter paddle lengths. So. Definitely down to at least 56 inches. Now this is the Bandit, and you can get it in an adjustable. I have it in the non-adjustable. The adjustable is 29 ounces. So what I can talk about is me using the 60-inch Bandit straight shaft paddle. It's only 26 ounces, and this is huge. Like, getting this paddle in my hand is just like, I can definitely feel the weight reduction. Now the only thing that I don't use it is the blade is too efficient. We talked about that, how like it grabs too much water, and like within a couple paddle strokes I can be absolutely pumped. And the reason is an R1 boat is so inefficient, where if I throw in a paddle, and I've talked about this, how it feels like concrete. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to put all your weight on that, and if R1 becomes like weightlifting, you can only do about 4 or 5 strokes before you're maxed out. And it's very difficult, I think, to actually like reduce your input, because you still have to take a full stroke. You still have to go, from your catch to your release or whatever. So that's why I'm going to explore cutting mine down to a 56. Like, I think even though the blade is efficient and this size, it's spoon-shaped, which I actually really do like, so compared to the Nantahala. And this shape feels really good. The spoon-shaped and the thinness of the fiberglass, it's an incredibly efficient. It takes a while to get used to. I haven't paddled it in reverse. I don't think you would want to, but that brings up the point that on my NRS standard paddles, if they ever bend on me, in a spoon shape, they'll bend near the shaft, and it's not like the paddle blade spoon shaped at all. But when the paddle is bent in an arc, I actually want to use it as like a spoon. Does that make sense? I don't want to use it the opposite way. Using it the opposite way is what SUP paddlers do. If you give me a SUP paddle as an R1, I'm actually going to use it in reverse as an R1er. And so keep that in mind, and we'll kind of talk about that. Now, so that was at 26 ounces. Now, so the video is going to hinge on the Bandito. This is my, yeah, haven't tried it, but this is the thing. I'm going to use my exploration skills and to look at different things from a visual perspective, from a specs perspective, from a weight perspective, and look at the blade shape and design and see if this would be something that I would want. And you have to do that all the time in life when you're making sales decisions or purchase decisions. And so the Bandito comes in at 26.25 for the adjustable. And so two things are happening here. I'm wanting to actually have my paddle, between right around the 56 inch, but maybe 57 is where I want it, but maybe 55 is the sweet spot. And so, and I'm actually talking myself into this. I wasn't going to, just because the price is going to be, $60 more, I think, compared to the straight shaft. So this is $230 and this is $280. So it's $50 more. But look at this. The adjustable Bandito is just as light as my current Bandit. You know what I mean? So that's, and who knows if this Bandit weight is at, not the 60 inch. I got the 60 inch, but maybe they chose to weigh this Bandit. No, and actually I can weigh my Bandit. My Bandit comes in at 26 ounces. And so my Bandit's 26 exactly, so my Bandit's just a little bit less than this. And so hell yeah. So if I got the adjustable Bandito, it's going to be the same weight. So it'd be the same weight that I want, and I can adjust it. So this could be, it's expensive, but just in the idea of figuring out what you want for R1, it's kind of it's intriguing. It's intriguing. And the reason why this is lighter is because the blade is narrower. I think it's narrower by, well, I guess let's take a look at the specs. So the blade is 7.25 by 18 compared to 8 by 19. The Bandit blade is 8 by 19, so it's 3/4. It's actually 8 by 19.25. Not that the actual length, this length has anything to do with it, but yeah, it's surface area. And so if you stick the entire blade in the water, which you do as an R1er, you're going to pick up that extra 1.25 inches of surface. So 1.25 inches of height and 0.35, sorry, 0.34, 0.75, sorry about that, 3/4 of an inch in width. And so, hell yeah. So the Bandito. And, there's not a whole lot of people that would have reviews. And I don't know if some of these reviews just came from Warner, paddlers. But one was just like, oh, yeah, I'm a rafter and, I'm R2ing. And I let my buddy use this. And then every time we go R2ing, he has to use this paddle. So I had to buy another one. That's a sales pitch. But, hell yeah. But I think it fits all my criteria. I've used the Bandit. I like the spoon shape. I actually really like the narrow fiberglass and how it bites in the water. It just bites too much. For an R1, this Bandit is too big. Unless the R1 boats get more efficient. If the R1 boats get more efficient, hell yeah. Because when I am trying to do like a maneuver, like I want this, you know what I mean? If you literally are trying to attain or, actually get that extra juice, I'm fine with paddling this. Like I can put in full strength on the Bandit. You just don't see me using this on a daily basis, and that says something. And so that's why I'm just hesitant to even get the Bandito, because it's weird. It's weird that a heavy Carlisle paddle is just what my gold standard is. And so you can assess for yourself whether that's just a lifetime of bias, of using a narrow T-grip, a narrow diameter, and then this shape of blade. But this shape of blade is pretty decent. It's inefficient, and there is benefits to that. It's kind of fascinating. Where the opposite is the Warner Bandit and the Bandito. They're very efficient. And it takes a while to get used to. But I can say that I've paddled them enough that once you do get used to it, you're fine. Okay, hell yeah. So now we're going to kind of move on. It is enticing to be like, well, if you're spending the $50 more to get the, at 280, do you spend another $50 to get the carbon? And I don't think so. The weight reduction, or the carbon with no adjustability, is 27 ounces, and the Bandit with adjustability is 26 ounces. So the adjustable Bandit is lighter than, sorry about that. It's lighter than the adjustable carbon. So and I said that, I said that right. This is the adjustable Bandit at 26 ounces, is just as light as the adjustable carbon Bandit. And so the one-piece Bandit is 24 ounces, and the one-piece Bandito is 23.75. So this Bandito, if you know the actual length that you want, is lighter than the carbon because you have less blades. So the question is that blade too small? And that's a possibility. You know what I mean? I've talked about how the Bandit's too efficient, but maybe that comes from the 60-inch length. And so that's the first thing that I actually might do, is just chop my current Bandit down to 56, because if I find the sweet spot on my current Bandit, then I can just be like, heck yeah, let's not get an adjustable. Because if you do get an adjustable, they're always like, they're never 100%, not wiggly. They're always just wiggly a little bit, where, it is enticing to have this, and you save $50, you're going to lose it at some point anyway. You're going to thrash and bash. And so if I could figure out that I needed a 56, this Bandito is very, because it's, and sorry we lost the weight on it, but that Bandito was 23.75, I think. So this Bandito with one piece is 23.75. Oh, there's the weight. Okay, hell yeah. So now is like, well, let's look at how light you could. If you're just taking recreational strokes or want a paddle for the back, like a spare paddle, a lot of these paddles, there's a lot of money for a paddle and stuff like that. But the Churchill is fiberglass, I would imagine, but it's just 16 ounces, and that's, I think you could get this where you're not going to break it. No guarantees, but if you get into these really lightweight paddles and you're using them very aggressively, rivers, banging them around especially, they might just snap. But I think they actually just did a review of this one in their, if someone touring with it, just for, yes, this is kind of interesting. This would be the other one to look at. Now, adjustable, I don't think you get the adjustable because you lose a lot of weight. So this is 16, the adjustable's 20. So, but hell yeah, this could be the best. So at 225, this could be the best, lowest weight for the money. But maybe, who knows? We'll take a look. And then you just get into some of the really fancy canoe paddles. You're going to be down to 12 ounces. Now, these could break as well, but I just that's a lot of money. I don't think a lot of our runners are going to be buying that. So these are kind of, to me, out of the question, but it's just like, hey, 16 ounces is for sure half of my paddle, way more than half. Even the current NRS is 34 ounces. So, hell yeah. So, this is just kind of interesting to think about. And I think this shape could be very interesting. That is the one shape that I do want to try for an R1. Because you can get it low in the water. I do like a lot of deep strokes with the pry. And so, yeah, I think there could be a lot of benefit to a paddle like this. Hell yeah. Okay, so this was the one piece, and it comes in at 12. The adjustable hella expensive, and it's 16. So if you're gonna go 16, you might as well just pick your length and get the Churchill 225. We're gonna see if that would be a one to do. And then they just have some other interesting ones for canoeing. The Journey. I was saying that I don't like that blade would be interesting to try. Yeah, it's smaller, and so it doesn't seem like, well, what is the blade size? We should be actually looking. The blade size is 8 by 18.5. You know what I mean? So that is still kind of a full width. And what's the Nanahala? We did not look at that. The Nanahala is 8.25 by 21.5. So definitely you get a 1/4 inch and then more on the height. So that is the other reason why the Nanahala and the guide stick, definitely 8.5 on the guide stick, 21.5. So I took my guide stick and actually chiseled it down to have the same profile as the Carlisle, and it still feels big for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just the diameter of the shaft, but it still feels, it doesn't, after all that, it still doesn't feel just like the Carlisle in the water, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so hell yeah. So, yeah, just options, but you're at 13 ounces and 16. So I think, I don't know, but I think these are straight shafts where you do get the bent shaft with the Churchill, which, you know what I mean, I would be using it in the reverse direction. So this potentially, sorry about that, probably not going to work. It's probably bent so much that it's not that it probably is not effective in the reverse direction. As an R1, it might feel real weird. But okay, hell yeah. So the fiberglass Journey, 16 ounces, and then you have the carbon Journey. And then they also make like the Journey with the wood handle, but you're 26 ounces. You're pretty heavy on those. The carbon blade with the wood is 24 ounces. So those are just kind of honorable mentions. Okay, hell yeah. So now you get into like, hey, this was just a good deal. If you're just into the standard paddles because you lose them a lot or want to, thrash and burn, I thought this was very fascinating. It only comes in at a 54-inch length, but 60. So yeah, oh, no duh. You'd get the 60 and chop it down, but hell yeah. So, because chopping down these paddles is so easy. And so for $25, Bass Pro Shops, and this comes in right at 30 ounces, but that was just from a Google search. So potential, like my paddle in aluminum, the recreational one that I have, is 27 ounces. So there's a chance that these could be lighter than they actually quote. But still, this is going to be lighter than the standard Carlisle. They are going to break way easier because they were not totally coated, but I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. I'll make some videos on my rec paddle and see if it feels bendy or if I'm just gonna bend it in a session. Okay, so that was $25, $40 I guess for this one, but no reason to spend $40 if you can Bass Pro Shop it up for $25, and this is free shipping as long as it comes to a Cabela's near you. Okay, Sawyer. Nothing against Sawyer. I just haven't really looked at them. Again, well, I've picked them up in the raft shops. Heavy, big diameters. They're the only ones that sometimes actually choke up the diameter near the catch or, near the neck. And I think that's what I want. Like if someone could design me a paddle, I don't, you need the actual diameter for rigidity. But then, make right here where I put my hand on the throat of the paddle, the neck of the paddle, just make that the diameter of the Carlisle. This is such a perfect or diameter. So yeah, this is what I want. I just want to use this plastic T-grip and some of these actually rec paddles that actually have a more rounded. This actually feels way better than the T-grip straight across, but still this diameter of a T-grip is way superior than the big ol' lug of the wooden Sawyers and the plastic or fiberglass Warners. Hell yeah. But yeah, this blade is interesting. I actually didn't even look up specs. So let's see. This blade dimension, hey, not bad. 7.5 by 15. So if that's true, then that would feel definitely. But this one is 44 ounces, so we're not even going to be looking at this too heavy. But you do have the free fall at 32 ounces or this Carbon Pro Race. So this would be kind of interesting. It's 24 ounces. But what were we comparing? We were comparing the Bandito. The Bandito was 23 ounces. So the Bandito that we were comparing was 24 ounces. You know what I mean? So the Bandito for $230, so keep that in mind. And then you have the Sawyer for $280, so $50 more. But it's very similar. 7.75. That was the same as the Bandito by 20. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I guess it comes down to even, some differences in what that blade feels like in the water. And I'm just going to not be super biased. Sometimes you're just like, oh, I haven't. Yes, it's because Sawyer has made stuff like this that it just looks like you're gonna put like it looks like an oar. It looks super thick, but that's not. That diameter is going to be the same as the Warner probably for the shaft diameter, and they probably don't even show shaft diameters. But they're the only ones that I've actually seen in the raft shop that sometimes reduce their diameter. So that could be a reduced diameter right there. And so if I could get specs on that diameter shaft and compare it to my Bandit, and it was narrower, then this could be, and it gets down to the 56-inch length. Definitely $50 more. This paddle, I don't know if it's flat. It just looks, I don't want to say like the word inefficient, but there is like from that. The spoon shape of the Bandit and the Bandito, they're very grippy. They're very precise paddles. Where if this is a flat paddle and not spooned, then potentially you have double the edge. So it doesn't matter. The paddle could be forward or reverse. That doesn't matter, especially when switching the paddle around and stuff. So that's kind of one to look at. Okay, hell yeah. And then this was kind of interesting. I did not even pay attention to the weight of these. I just saw that this paddle T-grip is just a little bit bigger than what I would want. And but this paddle's really light, 28 ounces for the NRS Economy. Now, if you get to the more expensive, it's definitely 36 ounces. But for R1, there's four different things. You have T-grip, diameter, blade shape, and weight. Those are the main things going on in purchasing and what you want in R1. And you know what I mean? Sometimes light can overshadow some of the things like a T-grip. I don't really particularly like this T-grip, having like just a little bit big. Diameter on this one might be definitely just a little bit bigger. I don't know if it's bigger. Blade shape, I definitely like the straight sides of the Carlisle, so that's kind of interesting. And it'd be fascinating to even take my Bandit and straighten out the sides. That is one thing that I would be interested in doing. Okay, hell yeah. Because this is just my bias. This is kind of what I'm used to. And it almost seems like you do even have a taper just a little bit. Okay, hell yeah. And you have the NRS guide. So these are just going to be heavy, and the size is only down to 60. Okay, so now we're getting down just to the oddballs. But we have Aquabound. They come for only $145, hopefully for free shipping. 27. You know what I mean? I think the Bandito, well, I don't know. That's a pretty, I would be interested in that. Does it have specs on the shape? 8 by 19. So still, I would be interested in I would get, 50, hey, you save money for the same size as the Bandit. If I got this in a 56, the Bandito though is a little bit narrower, but this blade shape actually looks real good. I think as an R1er, I would want this, and I think that's where you actually get, I don't know, just this flat edge. Yes, very fascinating. But like I said, I cut down my Warner guide stick for the same shape, and it didn't feel like, it wasn't just a night and day, like just cutting this shape made that difference. And so to me, it's those other three, it's all the aspects. It's the T-grip, shaft diameter, and blade through the water. Okay, hell yeah, some other honorable mentions. You have, for $60, this is only 26 ounces, which is, this is probably the best weight bang for the buck. So that's kind of fascinating. It's probably, it's got a spoon shape. It's not bent shaft, and so just a spoon shape. And yeah, that looks very interesting. For $60, this would be a very interesting one to experiment with. It's like, hey, that could be a definite one to experiment with. They do have the carbon. You don't save too much weight, or I think it's almost the same. But they do have the carbon one with the blem on eBay for that same $60. Ascent paddle. So these are all Ascent. They don't make this no more, it looks like, but you can pick this one up. It's 16 ounces, but who knows if you're going to break it. 56 inch, so I was just looking at that. And then here, this is a very interesting one. If I was to actually, I don't like the big T-grips, you know what I mean? I would want just the, yes, the bulbous T-grip is not my favorite, but this one came in at 16 ounces. And I just think from this Bending Branches canoe paddle, I think you could probably get away with this for whitewater without it just snapping. So I thought this was very interesting at 16 ounces, trying to compete with that, instead of the Churchill for 224 with a very narrow blade, then you have this Bending Branches that definitely has definitely a wider blade and teardrop. So this kind of fits the bill of, shallow strokes. You have a nice wide, you can get it into the water. You're not picking up a lot of surface area. So this is the shape that I'm more interested in actually figuring out, especially for some of these lighter paddles. It's just kind of interesting. And so yeah, that width is 8.25, but you can see the shape of it once you get the thing submerged in the water. Because a lot of the R1 strokes, I actually want to get hella submerged, and area matters. And so this video also is kind of just in the aspect of, hey, this is just kind of for me figuring out, what do I know about the feel of R1 paddles. And it's difficult just to be looking at pictures and being like, would I even want that? Who knows? And there's too much money to actually, you can only, do this every once in a while. And you're going to lose the paddle anyway. So it's just kind of fascinating. What would be the one choice? And it's just kind of like dragon boat paddles are fascinating because you can get down to like a 14 ounce, but these only come in like 51 inches, so they're too short. That's where this Bending Branches one was fairly fascinating, and the Warner Churchill, because they're 16 ounce paddles at the normal length. And so they could for sure break, for whitewater, but for efficient strokes, be kind of interesting. All right, last but not least, for $33.99 from this site, free shipping, $2 tax, comes to $36. You can get a camo paddle. They say it the blade shifts and the T-grip is asymmetric and weird. So we're just gonna, hell yeah. So I think the best bang for the buck, I'd do this, $25. If I broke a paddle, you know what I mean? And it was just like, I needed another paddle. R1, like this fits all my, it's super lightweight. It's, so I'm going to do a video on mine because I have one similar to this, is 27 ounces. And that's crazy because the Warner, Like the carbon one is 27 ounces. Isn't that wild? So like my aluminum recreational paddle, you know, kind of Carlisle or whatever, is 27 ounces, and that's the same weight as the carbon adjustable. And it has all those aspects that I like. It feels inefficient in the water, just perfectly inefficient, and so it moves well. But that is where the Bandito comes in, because you do have the Bandito at 24 ounces, which that's interesting. That's not even a huge weight reduction from that rec paddle. So yeah, I'll definitely use that rec paddle and make a video. It's just like, like, do I want, you know, like, because the rec paddle that I have at 27 ounces has the diameter I like, it has the T-grip I like, and it has the blade shape that I like. And so it'll just be interesting if, you know, while paddling that, am I feeling like I need more efficiency? And at some point, hell yeah. These Warner Bandits, the ones that I've been using, and I'm thinking the Bandito is just going to be perfect. I do like the spoon shape, and for a lot of R1 moves that need to be really efficient, you get the extra juice. Like, hands down, you get the extra juice. It's just a matter of if you get too tired while using it. So hell yeah. Okay, that's a video. So we went over weight, but you see the weights just range drastically. But lighter is better. I mean, if you can get a lightweight paddle, you're just going to be like, every stroke is going to feel a lot better. But then you have to take in the account of the T-grip, diameter of the shaft, and how the blade feels in the water. And you have to get used to all those things. And it's not guaranteed. And so big price tags for something to like figure out, is it what you want? But I can just talk about the Bandit and how the Bandito seems like a better option for R1, because Bandit is too much blade for me. It's like weightlifting, where this would be definitely more endurance, and it still might grab a whole lot of water. All right, so hell yeah, we're done. Thanks for joining me. Booyah.